Saban Entertainment, one of the kings of kids media for decades. Creators of such shows like Power Rangers, Digimon, Power Rangers. Okay, all joking aside, Saban has tons and tons of shows under their belt. Okay, had, since most of them still belong to Disney, but they had a lot of shows with their names attached. Some more recognizable than others, which happens to be the subject of today's video. So strap in as we look at some of Saban's lesser-known shows, anime adaptations, and even movies. This is 5 Forgotten Saban Shows and Movies. Long before Digimon was even a concept, and Power Rangers was still a twinkle in Haim Saban's eye, the company was only known for their cartoons and anime adaptations, with nary a live-action person in sight. That was until 1987, when Saban stepped into the realm of live-action with probably the easiest thing to do in the medium, game shows. Now, Saban only produced 3 game shows in their lifetime. Okay, 3.5. I'm Telling, which was a kid's version of the Newlywed Game, Treasure Mall, which has some similarities to Shop Till You Drop, Couch Potatoes, which was such a rip-off of MTV's Remote Control that its host, the late Ken Ober, ripped the show to pieces, and Season 2 of Video Power, which went from Captain N Acclaim Edition to a watered-down version of Starcade. Now, none of these shows were that successful, which can be marked down to the fact that Saban really didn't have any experience with game shows. Just take an already existing show and either make a show with the same concept or make it for kids. The only show closest to an original idea, like I said, was Treasure Mall, which predated Shop Till You Drop by about 3 years. After Video Power ended, Saban exited the game show world, leaving behind what could be best described as mediocrity. Oh yeah, almost forgot. The late, great Paul Walker was a contestant on I'm Telling with his sister. Everyone's got to start somewhere, I guess. Does this family really need an introduction at this point? From the original New Yorker comics, the 60s sitcom, the 90s film duology, the 2010 musical, and a few TV specials and cartoons here and there, this macabre family has no signs of slowing down anytime soon. Now, where does Saban fit into this creepy, kooky, mysterious, and spooky mix? Well, after a third movie in the Paramount series was cancelled after the death of Raul Julia, Warner Brothers picked up the rights to the Addams Family license a few years later and released the Saban-produced Addams Family Reunion in 1998. Despite Carol Struycken and Christopher Hart reprising their roles from the Paramount films and Tim fucking Curry as Gomez, the film was blech. But what most people probably don't know was that this was technically the pilot to a new series, predictably titled The New Addams Family. Now, this series can only be described as the original 60s sitcom, but with elements carried over from the films, such as expanded roles for Wednesday and Pugsley, Fester being Gomez's brother, and Grandmama being Morticia's mother. Heck, even the original show gets acknowledged with John Astin returning as Grandpapa Addams, a welcome addition. Now, when I said this show could be described as the original 60s sitcom, but with elements carried over from the films, I meant it. Each episode's plot was taken directly from the 60s sitcom. Now, that can be both a good and bad thing. It's good because these plot lines did work back in the 60s, so reworking them for the late 90s shouldn't be much of a problem. It also keeps the dark humor intact, something that was kinda hit or miss in Addams Family Reunion. But at the same time, this hurts the series as, well, it's been done already. Those who grew up with the original show will know these plots and see the resolutions a mile away. You kinda want to see these characters go through new plots that couldn't be done in the 60s. But then again, Reunion attempted that and it didn't really pan out that well, so sticking with what works seemed like the better alternative. Now, the new Addams Family would end up being one of the last non-Power Rangers live-action shows Saban would make, but despite that, it's still a curious take on the Addams Family formula. With Saban's monopoly on action shows for kids imported from Japan, one has to wonder what such a show would look like without any sort of source material to base it on. No, that show only wishes it could be our next topic. Unlike that Dragon Ball Z abridged joke, Mystic Knights of Tirnanog had a lot of effort thrown into it. Filmed on location in Ireland, featuring a cast of mostly Irish actors, and featuring original costumes and monsters, Saban had pretty much mastered the Power Rangers formula at this point, due to the show airing concurrently with In Space and Lost Galaxy. So it was a nice change of pace from the heavy sci-fi that Power Rangers was going through at the time. While not the biggest hit in the US, it surprisingly had a big cult following in Germany of all places. Case in point, the German opening theme was completely redone, with music composed by the Irish-American folk group, the Kelly Family. Take a listen.
Mystic Knights have come to save our lives. Mystic Knights are here now. Long ago in ancient times, there was a school of magic rhymes. It prophesied the Mystic Knights, the true young heroes, brave and bright.
Then the dark forces came, brought the people endless pain. Now the children have no fear, 'cause they know the Mystic Knights are here.
Kind of a shame this wasn't used in the US, but as I said, it wasn't the big hit Saban was hoping for. Toys weren't selling, so the planned second season, subtitled Battle Thunder, was cancelled, and its budget went to Lost Galaxy, which was going through some pretty rough developmental issues at the time. Once again, like every other Power Rangers-esque show Saban made, a proper ending was never filmed, but at least Mystic Knights had a good excuse this time, outside of running out of stock footage. Sadly, this show has yet to see a proper DVD or Netflix release in the US. The only DVDs available for Mystic Knights is, of course, in Germany. So unless you want to see this intriguing show, then I wish you luck on your trek through YouTube. Throughout the mid to late 90s, Saban obtained some of the strangest licenses to make TV movies and straight-to-VHS films out of. The aforementioned Addams Family, Richie Rich, Casper, twice, and probably the most baffling of them all, National Lampoon. Now, by the late 90s, the National Lampoon brand had become a shell of its former self. The original magazine it was based on was on its last legs, and the films with the National Lampoon name were a far cry from the likes of the Vacation series, instead going for satirical parody films similar to Airplane, Naked Gun, and Hot Shots. For some reason only known to Haim Saban himself, he teamed up with the failing National Lampoon to produce one of these stinkers, National Lampoon's Men in White. Men in White, a parody of Independence Day and, obviously, Men in Black, focused on two garbage men who, after escaping from some alien invaders, become the titular Men in White in order to save Earth from the aliens' plan to destroy every garbage truck in the world. Yeah, this is one of those kind of movies. Probably one of the only interesting things about Men in White is lead actor Karim Prince, who you might remember as Sestro, the Blue Equation Ranger. This in turn leads to probably one of the only few amusing jokes in this entire thing.
Oh well.
This might be the only time Saban has ever used Sentai footage in this manner, and it's kind of fascinating that they would even consider doing such a thing in the first place. Also, there's this scene.
He's Dr. Strange, my style. He's so extreme. His thoughts are genocidal. He'll always make you scream.
Men in White might be considered one of the worst Saban films ever produced. And that's saying something, considering this is when they were pumping these films out pretty frequently. But at the same time, the odd usage of Power Rangers-related property also makes it one of the more puzzling films in Saban's library. And to top it all off, this means that Disney technically owns the rights to a National Lampoon film, which is funnier than the film itself. And now I've saved the most baffling and shocking for last. Now, when you look at Saban's film output, there is a surprisingly stark contrast from pre-Mighty Morphin Power Rangers the movie and post. Before MMPR the movie, Saban's films, both theatrical and television, were much more mature. Films like A Perfect Little Murder, Prey of the Chameleon, A Passion for Murder, and Silent Thunder were among Saban's film library. But those were all before Power Rangers was even a thing. But there were a few that did come out after Saban's crowning jewel became a big hit. And this is probably the biggest one they made. Blindfold, Acts of Obsession. I've mentioned this little TV movie before on my Tumblr, but it needs to be mentioned here too. Unlike those other films, which were all standard thrillers, this one's kinky. A woman is advised by her psychiatrist to spice up her sex life with some handcuffs and the titular blindfold. Meanwhile, the woman's sister is hot on the trail of a serial killer who handcuffs and blindfolds their victims before knifing them to death. Fearing the psychiatrist is the one responsible, she must ultimately save her sister from the possibility of being the next victim. This might be the only Saban film to feature actual nudity and unsimulated sex, and that in and of itself is mind-boggling. You know you've stumbled upon a fucked up scenario when the familiar Saban Entertainment logo you've seen countless times segues into a murder scene. And no, I'm not making this shit up. Don't believe me? Ronnie Hadar is credited as producer, Shuki Levy composed the music, which you're listening to right now, Ron Wasserman helped with said music, and the writer and director, Lawrence Simone, directed a few episodes of Turbo. And to top it all off, Haim himself gets special thanks in the credits. Don't know why, but someone must have been feeling pretty thankful for him during development. Well, I don't think I can top that. Saban made an erotic thriller. Case closed. I hope you enjoyed this trip through Saban's skeleton closet. Please like, comment, and subscribe if you enjoyed, and who knows, if this gets popular, maybe I'll look at some more things from their expansive library.